just more like increase our revenue and increase our income, right? After that, when the Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me came out, that's when things really, it was like, okay, we could go get a deal and make some things happen. So when the Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me came out and we started working on the West Coast Bad Boys compilation and really connecting with all of the popular, artists on the West Coast, mainly in the Bay Area, that's when we knew, okay, we could go get a deal. And we started getting phone calls from all kinds of record labels, East Coast, West Coast, that wanted to do business with us. And some of the deals that came across the table financially, the advance money was solid, looking at, a high six-figure, close to seven-figure advance money. But we couldn't, the thought process was we wouldn't be able to control who we are. And we had different discussions around, do we sacrifice the Master P name, but as long as we keep No Limit separate? Does Master P sign as an artist with one of these other labels on the East Coast or down in the West Coast? And then we use the money from the Master P artist name and getting that out on a major label to spend in the No Limit, to really building the No Limit foundation to make it into a high-powered record label. So I would say more along the lines after Mama's Bad Boy, and when we start putting the West Coast Bad Boys, and then when the West Coast Bad Boys hit Billboard charts, we were in the top 100, top 200 on the pop charts, and then the top 100 on the R&B hip hop charts. That's when we knew we're like, okay, people are calling. We've got something here. We're on the road. We're going to shows, and we're opening up for larger artists. We're going to shows. We're doing our in-stores where we're signing autographs, and they're literally closing down stores and closing down areas because so many people were in on the No Limit and the Master P movement. And that's when we kind of knew we had something.
So he the West Coast, it really is what enabled him to blow up and go down south, as everybody knows. At what point in time did you guys realize that you could walk into Priority Records and get like an 80-20 deal?
Yeah,
which was unheard of.
80-20 deal. Well, the thing is, we were making money. I mean, and I honestly thought we kind of jumped the gun because we could have probably did something a little bit different, but we did an 80-20 deal with them because at the time they were looking for their next show, right? They're looking for their next artist and label to take them to the next level. I think the biggest part of what that deal was is they knew we had a lot of content. They knew we were doing projects that the world wanted to hear, and it was so gritty and so underground. And we had already coming off the West Coast Bad Boys. People were waiting for the Ice Cream Man. They were waiting for a new TRU record, and they were waiting for a Down South Hustlers record. So those were three records that they already knew. We had already had pre-orders for those albums, right? So back then what we used to do, we used to go to the retail store, put together one sheets. We used to talk to the retailers about these projects, and then we would pre-order it. So we would do pre-marketing in those retail stores because a lot of times back then they had displays, they had the books and the marketing materials, the marketing flyers that they would send out to customers, or they would have where people could see what records are coming out. So what would happen is we create such a buzz in those retail stores, we would get orders, and the retailers would come to us and say, when is this album going to be done? Because I've got so many people asking about it. I want 100,000 copies, right? So when you're looking at 100,000 copies and you're talking like over $1 million in billing, we're already we're in pretty good shape, And I think for us it was about what do we need to do to get us out nationally. So we're working with St. Charles, we're working with City Hall Records, we're working with Southwest Wholesale and Selected Hits and those smaller distributors. Yeah, I mean, and Gonzalez as well and all those folks. So we're working with them. But we wanted to be able to drop an album nationally and know that it's in every system and in every store, and we'll be able to have enough coverage to, if we went down to Miami, Florida, we had an album that was in the retail store, because that's half the battle. The biggest thing that artists didn't realize, like, look, once you get in the system, you're able to push those records to the retailers. And I think what happened so much, people didn't spend enough time with building a relationship with the retailers. Now, we did it kind of backwards. We spent more time developing relationships with the retailers to make sure we have product available than we did on the radio station at the front end. So most artists back then, they would say, or labels, they would go to the record store or the radio stations and try to get played. And for us, we're like, look, we could have the hottest record out there ever, but if we're not in the retail stores, have a good relationship with these retail stores, we're not going to sell anything. So we already would go out, we get these pre-orders, we would sell these records, and we had success. So it was easy to have a conversation for Priority to say, hey, it's not going to cost you anything. You're just going to press some product to put in the stores. We're going to do our own marketing strategies. We're going to deal with the retailers. You just need to make sure the record's in the store. And for them, it was a win-win situation, right? They didn't really have to give us any money. We weren't really in a situation where we were hurting, you know. We weren't at the level we wanted to be at, but it wasn't like we were going to starve to death. And at the end of the day, for Priority, they needed something that was hot. And this, for them, it's volume, right? So, you know, we'd have 20, 22 albums ready to go, and we'd have to tweak them and stuff, but we'd have them slated. And for them, they're like, okay, you got 22 albums. It might clog up our distribution system a little bit, but for the most part, we're going to be able to move some units and make some things happen. So that's kind of, you know, that was kind of how we were able to kind of walk through the door and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. We're not looking for much for you. Most artists who were coming in the door who wanted them to pay for everything were in a different situation where they're going to get 8 to 12% of their record because they're asking for a Priority to do everything. We kept our own publishing. We owned the rights to the records. All we needed was them to put it in the retail store so we could generate it.